Hello, my name is Mark Huntington. I'm the Managing Director of an organisation called A-Star Future. We've spent the best part of the last 15 years helping British students to find universities all around Europe. And we now also work with international schools as well. So if you're looking for opportunities that are taught in the English language elsewhere in Europe, we can perhaps help. Now, the observant of you might have realised I'm not stood in the United Kingdom right now. I'm actually in Prague in the Czech Republic. Prague is actually home to one of Europe's newest universities, Prague City University, which is an excellent example of what we are going to talk about in this video. Bachelor's degrees at European universities except in the United Kingdom. Now, why are we talking about this today? Well, it's because an increasing number of students are looking at options outside of, shall we say, traditional countries like the United States, USA, for example. This is because of the general financial political situation in the UK, which I don't intend to address too much. There is also a greater trend of students just applying to more universities in general. It's far more likely these days that you would apply to more than one country anyway, and European universities are now showing up on students' radars for, I would argue, two main reasons. One is that the cities of Europe tend to be great places to be a student. 13 of the top 30 in the world, according to a recent report on the campusadvisor.com website, are European cities. And more importantly, perhaps, Europe also has excellent universities. You could actually say that European universities are just as good as American ones because roughly a third of the world's top 150 is American and another third is European, not including the United Kingdom. Which are those universities? I'm sure you will want to know. This slide shows you the first 25 universities in Europe that are within the Times Higher Education Top 100. And if we go down to the 50th European university, that takes you to roughly 166th in the world. But the rankings won't tell you everything. By all means, go and have a look at the Times Higher Education World University Rankings at your leisure, but do be aware that they miss some things, including excellent universities. They're supposed to be a judge of which are the best universities in the world, but not always are they tremendously successful at doing that. The example I've given here on this slide is a place called Università Bocconi in Milan, Italy. Any of you who are Italian are going to know Bocconi instinctively. It's a very, very well-known university. It's also completely unranked in the global university rankings until you delve one step deeper and look at the rankings for the subjects they actually teach, namely economics, management, and finance. There you will find they're very highly ranked, but if you just look at the general rankings, which will tell you which are the best, comprehensive universities if you want, then that will not really help you tremendously. So do be aware that you need to look beyond the headline rankings. Another reason why you need to do this is because, honestly, I've just shown you the top 50 universities in Europe, but unless you actually speak the language of the countries where they are based, they may not have a huge amount of suitable options for you. This slide, I would argue, is actually more useful because it shows you which of those universities actually teach something, anything, in English at bachelor's level. And here you can see that one country really does dominate. The Netherlands, roughly half of the universities in the top 50 that are teaching in English are Dutch universities. And when you look at the number of courses they have on offer, they are much bigger than some of the other universities. The University of Groningen, for example, has perhaps the widest range of degrees taught in English in Europe, with 37 current on offer. That's why, of course, that we have a whole dedicated website, studyinholland.co.uk. So if you are specifically looking for Dutch universities, absolutely, this is the place to go. And also it's worth pointing out that Dutch universities, while the research universities are excellent, it's also a great place to find options that are taught in English for subjects like art and design, physiotherapy, hotel management, and things like that. So more vocational subjects, the Netherlands is also an excellent choice for you. But not everything is on offer there. You've got to bear in mind that your choice of subject will really have an impact on where you can go. Now, some subjects are more commonly offered by international universities in English than others. This is because some subjects, if you like, lend themselves to international education better than others. Classic example would be something like business. I think you can now go so far as to say that if you are thinking about studying business and you're not thinking about using this as an opportunity to explore life in a different country or to learn another language, then you are actually doing it wrong. These are such fundamental parts of what it is to be a success in business these days. So up on this slide, I put up 4 examples from Bocconi, we've already mentioned, 2 Dutch universities, Avans University of Applied Science and Groningen, and also Prague City University. Supply and demand also determines which subjects are taught in English as well. If lots of people can't get in their home countries to study a certain subject, then naturally universities around the world might look at it as an opportunity to, well, help out. Medicine, dentistry, and veterinary medicine are perhaps the best examples I can give you here. A lot of students will look at European options as being a fallback option, as plan B, but that does not reflect the quality of the education you'll get, so much as the fact that, yeah, going abroad for 5, 6, 7 years can be a little bit more than most people are willing to, to do. Do have a look, though, at medical schools in Italy, also in Croatia, veterinary schools in Croatia, and dentistry in Spain has proven very, very popular in recent years as well. But then just because a subject is popular doesn't mean that it's going to have lots and lots of options available for you. Good example here would be something like psychology. You don't have a huge amount of choice if you want to study psychology in Europe. You have good choices, but you don't have hundreds of them, maybe 10. And of those, 7 or 8 of them are going to be in the Netherlands. There are a couple more in Italy, or one in Italy that I'm aware of, Universidad Católica del Sacro Cuore, and a couple in Spain as well, including Universidad Europea that we put up here on this slide. But you don't have endless choice when it comes to studying psychology. Now, a lot of people might also be thinking about European universities in the context of studying in the United States as well. It's fair to say, and I won't dwell on it today, that American education is actually very, very different from what you'd get in Europe. You can, however, find that in Europe at certain, American university campuses in Paris, Rome, Madrid, places like that. But also some European universities have adjusted and adapted the American way of teaching, primarily university colleges in the Netherlands. So you might come across the university colleges there, and they are offering a liberal arts style of education, which, yes, has more in common with what you'll get in the USA than it might do elsewhere in the Netherlands. But assuming you can find something suitable, and most people can, what else do you need to consider? Well, obviously going to study in different countries does throw up different challenges as well. So I'd just briefly like to make you aware of a few of these. Now, the first one is actually recognition of degrees. Now, this is usually not a massive problem, but it is something you need to be aware of because, for certain subjects, let's be honest, it's a bigger deal than for others. Within the European higher education area, which is bigger than the EU and does still include the UK, all degrees are notionally equal in terms of the amount of study that goes into them. Now, that's a long way from saying they're all as good as each other, and it also doesn't mean that they're all automatically recognized, although, to be honest, if you're looking at studying history, economics, biology, this is really not going to be an issue for you. The issue is going to come if you're wanting to study a more professional degree, let's put it that way, something like medicine, dentistry, engineering. Law is a classic example. If you study law in another country, you're going to be studying, that country's law or an international European legal degree, which means that you are going to have to do additional study before you're able to actually practice as a lawyer somewhere else. Now, there are responses by universities to this issue of recognition that mean that sometimes you might actually go to university and come back with 2 or occasionally even 3 degrees anyway from different geographic areas, therefore improving your recognition. Classic example here would be the one I've put up at the bottom of this slide here, the World Bachelor in Business. Now, this is very special. There aren't many degrees exactly like this right now, but it is actually a triple degree offered between Bocconi, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and USC, the University of Southern California. 2 of these are in the top 60 in the world. Bocconi, as already pointed out, isn't, but all of them are excellent universities. And at the end of a 4-year degree, you would end up with a British, a European, an American, and an Asian degree. So that might be something that appeals to you. Also within Europe, recognition is something that many universities are responding to differently. Prague City University, their degrees are actually British university degrees. So if you're still attracted to the idea of British higher education, but not necessarily the United Kingdom as a destination, you can absolutely find British university degrees on offer elsewhere in Europe. Now, this is far more common in other parts of the world, but there are a few examples in Europe. In fact, Prague City University is one of the only examples I can think of where you can actually study a British foundation degree in art and design and get exactly that same qualification as you would get at a UK university. So recognition is an issue, be aware of it, but it shouldn't probably be too much of a barrier to where you want to go and study within Europe. Entry requirements, well, these can be very different and sometimes surprisingly different. European universities do have a lot of different philosophies with regards to university entry, so you do need to pay particular attention to this. Ordinarily, with A-levels and the IB, you should be absolutely fine to apply in most places. The International Baccalaureate is very widely recognized, and most universities will be able to tell you what the entry requirements are likely to be in IB or A-level terms without too much difficulty. Occasionally, there are issues with the level of maths that you might do within the IB, so do bear that in mind. But usually these are logical, so if you're wanting to study sciences, yes, you're going to need a higher level maths, for example. One thing I will just briefly say about entry requirements as well is that in some countries they might appear to be rather low. Don't imagine that this is a reflection of quality at all. It isn't. It's just a reflection of the fact that in different countries, different entry requirements apply. It is also the case that actually getting into university isn't seen as a big problem in some countries. Staying in at the end of the first year, that's what really counts. So your performance in the first year at university is often far more important than your performance in your high school diploma. How do you apply? Well, this is obviously a very, very complicated subject, and I have not got anything like enough time to go into it in too much detail. All I'm going to say is that you're going to apply differently to how you would in the UK, the USA, or wherever you might happen to be. In many cases, you'll apply directly to the university you're interested in. In some other countries, like Ireland, you'll come across the CAO. Like the Netherlands, you'll come across StudyLink, and you're going to have to come to terms with these things. All I will say about them is that if you're used to the UCAS system, you're going to find these systems a little bit strange, but you're going to find them manageable. If you're used to the American system, well, I can promise you nothing is as difficult as the American system in terms of applying to university. So really don't worry about it. Deadlines for applying are often a little bit different to what you find in other countries. Different university systems don't mesh together tremendously well. So you might have to accept an offer in one country before you even heard or been able to apply in another one. So if you are looking at multiple countries as your application strategy, you're going to find this a little bit difficult. For example, if you've got Ireland as your first choice and the Netherlands as your second choice, honestly, that's not going to work out tremendously well. But there's a lot more I can say about application issues, a lot more to say about finance that I haven't even touched upon today, because it's so different now depending on which passports that you have. If you have got questions around tuition fees and scholarships and things like that, I would advise you to contact us directly. I've put up here on this slide our websites and our email and Twitter address. Please do also go to our YouTube channel where you can find a lot of videos about all sorts of different things. That might be a very good next step when you're researching your options in European higher education. But thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for watching.